Fantastic. There you go, got it. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining me on this Zoom call. So I think the first thing I want to do is just say thank you for sitting with me today. This is going to be a process where a lot of information is going to come your way. So of course, thanks very much to the platform, the EA Zoom meetings, for giving me the opportunity to share my ideas with you and kind of flush out the current thinking that I have at the moment around the subject that I'll reveal to you very soon. And yeah, my name is Simon, as you know, and you can find my work at raisingvibrations.com. And so the word is raising, and there's a hyphen, vibrations.com. And I also have a YouTube channel that is also Raising Vibrations, and you can go see what I do there. I create a lot of content around astrology and also do YouTube shorts as well, short pieces of information that help us understand astrology in different ways. So let me jump into today's presentation. I'm going to share the screen. And with us over there, there we go. Excellent. Okay. All right, so welcome everyone to this conversation today. I am really excited to, again, as I said, share my ideas with you, flush them out, put some thoughts into the collective, and hopefully by the end of this conversation, you're going to walk away with your head at least spinning in certain directions, giving you the opportunity to really deeply think in what themes I'll bring to the surface. I really hope that this actually does trigger some deep thinking for you as well. Okay. So, as the title suggests, today's talk is about Pluto through Aquarius, or Pluto's transit in Aquarius, or Pluto in Aquarius, however you wish to see it. And the transit will start itself on the 23rd of March, 2023. Pluto will actually retrograde back into Capricorn for a while, and then it will move back into Aquarius, where it will stay up until 2044. So this is going to be a pretty lengthy transit, and it is one thing for sure that this pass of Pluto moving through Aquarius is going to signify quite a significant change within the collective. So I'm going to break down some of the ideas that I have thought about, and hopefully, again, like I said, these ideas will plant some reflection within yourself. Okay, so first thing that I want to acknowledge is the fact that this intro, or no, it's not actually the intro, it's the Back to the Future, number one, right at the end. There's the scene where, if you've watched Back to the Future, they have this car that allows them to time travel, which is an Aquarius theme. And at the end of Back to the Future 1, as you can see, the character called Marty and Doc, they are getting into the car, and usually they need a certain speed to be able to time travel. And in this specific scene right at the end, Marty says, "Hey, Doc, don't you need 88, like a long distance to catch up to 88 miles per hour to be able to do this future-orientated time travel, which is what the car can do?" And he responds by saying, "Roads, where we're going, we don't need roads." And this is really a big piece of my motivation, my inspiration for today's talk. What I mean when I talk about roads in this context and Pluto through Aquarius is that as we move through this next sort of 20 years of Pluto in Aquarius, a lot is going to change for us, like a lot. And if you just look at the most recent transit of Pluto through Capricorn, a lot of us did not expect the things that happened during that transit. Our world changed quite a lot. And so as Pluto goes through Aquarius, it's pretty much going to be the same, right? We have a certain idea of what that direction is, but ultimately the uncertainty of this transit is really something that we need to keep at the tip of our consciousness, the tip of our awareness, that we may have certain predictions about it, but what that road, what that journey is going to be like, there is no road for it, right? And you'll see throughout this presentation that we don't need roads. It's actually going to take on different forms. Like it's not just specific to this, what I've just shared right now, but you'll see in each theme, there's an element to this idea that as we move forward and as the collective moves forward with Pluto in Aquarius, that the nature of our trajectory, the nature of the road that will go ahead, is going to be very unexpected. And yeah, it might even turn out to be that we don't need roads. Okay, so moving on from this side over here, my goal with you today is, as I said, to share some ideas with you around what I sense and perceive Pluto's transit through Aquarius to be. And this is going to be some broad strokes, right? We can absolutely get into some very deep details around this Pluto entering Aquarius transit. But ultimately, this transit itself, this Pluto through Aquarius, is going to bring us a lot of things, a lot of experiences that, again, like I said, we will not know. We have no idea what it really is. And so my goal today is to, in a sense, give us an idea of what types of patterns we will probably experience. Okay. And I want to share those with you today so that as you move forward with your envisioning of the experience of Pluto through Aquarius, that these themes will be on the peripheral vision for you. Okay. So my themes for the talk, the key themes for this talk are going to be the Aquarius archetype. I want to talk about the body connection, AI and tech, and the brain changing. Okay, so these kind of the four key themes that I'm going to touch on today and how they correlate to the Aquarius energy, and more importantly, what I perceive, sense will change at the collective level. So I think before I jump into the Aquarius archetype, just a quick baseline understanding of Pluto. Pluto sits at the furthest point from the sun within the context of our solar system, right? And so the nature of Pluto's transit through a sign, or the impact that Pluto has on our collective consciousness, is going to be pretty deep. Okay, it's going to be something, it's going to be an energy, or it is an energy that shifts the entire collective, right? When Pluto moves, we move. So what we deal with as a collective has a very profound and correlation to the transit of Pluto. When we're dealing with collective themes in our world as a collective story, you can pretty much know that Pluto is going to be instigating quite a lot of those themes. And it's a planetary system that deepens our relationship to our human nature, but at the same time is incredibly, like, it has a powerful impact on us. And the nature of the certain impacts that we can have with Pluto transits don't just stay with us for like a year. They leave inroads in our collective psyche. They remain there as patterns and experiences that stay with us. So one of the things that just comes to mind is the Chernobyl incident with the nuclear reactor, right? This was a very Plutonian experience. Humanity learned and understood some really deep patterns that it carries within itself around its behavior. And of course, that specific event, and there are many others that I can speak to, these events linger within our consciousness. So Pluto impacts us in a very profound way. So Pluto moving into Aquarius, these themes that I'm going to bring up here are not just kind of like fleeting, trivial, oh, look, Saturn's moving through Aquarius, and so this is what we're currently dealing with. Or, Jupiter's moving through Aquarius, and so, this is what pops up in our collective temporarily. When Pluto moves through Aquarius, you can pretty much know that there's going to be a tremendous amount of change that's going to take place for us. And for those of you that are familiar with evolutionary astrology and have explored planetary nodes, Neptune, the planet Neptune, has its south node between 10 and 14 degrees of Aquarius. So for a period of time, Pluto will actually transit the south node of Aquarius. And that's another talk that I will be doing here in terms of what that means. So, you know, in terms of the scope of this Pluto through Aquarius pattern or transit, there is a tremendous amount to discuss. Okay, so now that I've kind of put that information out there, let's see if I can jump into the next slide. Okay, so my main goal here in this slide is to bring awareness to the Aquarius archetype and to help you integrate and make a relation to this within your own life, so you can kind of see where these experiences have occurred. And then to also, like the subtitle suggests, how to navigate the pattern, give us a kind of sense of how you can navigate the Aquarius archetype. So I'm sure some of you have got Pluto or like planets in the 11th house, or an Aquarius rising, or Sun in Aquarius, or you know, planets in Aquarius. So, you know, part of your life will contain understanding the nature of this Aquarius energy, right? When a planet moves into Aquarius, like Pluto or Neptune or Uranus, you can pretty much know that at a collective level, we will share this, whether it's something that directly impacts you, like you are in society and you're part of an experience where Aquarius themes are present and you're interacting with it, or if you're somebody that's pretty much detached from societal engagement and you don't really have a lot of exposure to Aquarius themes, although that's very difficult to do, you're gonna, in some way, shape, or form, experience this Aquarius archetype. So this is my attempt to help us bring attention to the Aquarius energy and the multiple ways that it can be seen and experienced, how you can relate this in your own life, and what to think about as you navigate going forward. Okay. So the key word that I'd like to use to initiate us in the Aquarius energy is that the experience is like acceleration. Okay. So acceleration, it's like a blur. Something happens faster and more rapid than what you are currently interacting with. So acceleration is where the movement of energy essentially speeds up. I mean, these are words that you'd have to understand, but it speeds up. And so just like this picture suggests, everything starts to become blurred. So when we have Aquarius experiences within our lives, or that we've got planets in Aquarius, that's part of your emotional psyche, part of your ego self, that will be very sensitive to events that have happened so rapid, so fast, that it left you kind of going, wow, I was just taken up by it, or it just happened so fast, or in a blink of an eye. And so the Aquarius archetype as a mechanic accelerates things. And this behaviorism of acceleration fractures stuff, right? It fractures something that's solidified, or it fractures something that is static, okay? So this acceleration happens, and then there is a fracturing that happens as an adaptation, right? Something that occurs as an offshoot of this behavior. Now, to go a little bit deeper into this process, the acceleration is meant to open up to deeper states of, you can say awareness, you can say consciousness, but if you remove those two words, it's a deeper state of reality, okay? The acceleration opens up for deeper states of reality. So you can already start to get a sense that as Pluto enters Aquarius, humanity is going to go through a very rapid change within its understanding of itself, and that part of this rapid change will bring into our nature, into our reality, a depth of understanding that is going to fracture a lot of our perceptions of things that we've always just taken for granted, but also open us up to completely different states of awareness. And that process can either be incredibly profound, or it can be completely disturbing. And I think both of them are going to be present for people, okay? So to get a sense of this acceleration, it happens so fast, energy, Okay. So when you think about acceleration and you kind of look at this imagery over here, one of the reasons why we can actually capture something like this using a camera is our understanding of time, right? In our mechanical engineering and understanding of technology, we've been able to develop cameras, right, or filming gear that allows us to slow down the frames of moments to the point where we can actually have an image like this occur, like we can see things in slow motion. And I'm not sure if you've looked on the internet, and I encourage you to do this. Go on the internet and just type in slow motion, um, bullet moving through apple, right? Or bursting a balloon. And you'll notice that people have equipment that allows them to slow down the frames per second of something that's being captured to the point where you can literally see each moment occurring individually. And then, of course, when time exists in a more sped up way, we can actually see everything just happen all at once, right? So Aquarius, in its acceleration space, also correlates to our ability to experience time in a completely different way. And this is something that we will see begin to emerge more than what we already have it right now. That our capacity for memory, our ability to understand things and experiences in life will become a collective experience right now, like beyond than what we're doing. So let me give an example of what I mean by this, okay? If you talk to somebody that was sort of born in 1950, right? 1960, 1970, I mean, you can even go up to 1980, but around that time. And you said to them, at some point, we are going to be able to watch TV on a screen that's flat with this type of resolution that makes it look like people are so real that, they need to have like makeup on to give this illusion, right? That people, don't look human like this crystal clear 4K. And that at some point we will have this ability to fast forward and rewind a TV show at the click of a button, right? And that we would be able to record material that at a later point, right, we can set something to be recorded, and we'd be able to then watch it when somebody else has watched it, but we haven't watched it, right? That our relationship to time and the way they experience multidimensionality, right, that is an Aquarius feature and function. And so what you will see through Pluto, through Aquarius, is the acceleration and integration of memory and time and experience of time and memory together in a completely different light. And that's one dimension that I'm talking about that will completely open for us. We'll be able to see it differently. Okay. So one of the cool things about the Aquarius archetype from a deeply, I would say the word spiritual perspective, what I mean by that when I say spiritual is just kind of that we are consciously aware that we have this humanness with us, right? This body, we're on this planet, this rock, and we have this night sky, as in this picture over here, and we're trying to make sense of it, right? What's this relationship between this binary sequence that is at the bottom here and this great cosmology, and including the Milky Way over there, right? So spirituality to me is this kind of connection between the binary of our biological sequence and the relationship to the cosmic sky that is so vast and broad that our comprehension of it can't even, it's just too much, right? So immediately you can see there is a binary existing here that I want to use consistently throughout this conversation, which is that there is an interrelationship between the expanse and this earthly bound experience. And that synthesis over there to me is the cosmic joke, as it were, right? And so our spirituality is how do we fuse those together individually for ourselves, and how do we find meaning? How do we project meaning? But it is also the capacity for us to, in a sense, inquire into humanity's role as a consciousness, right? A collective consciousness. So I want you to gaze just on these images here. I want you to kind of feel and connect with the sensation around, you know, what does this bring up for you? What do you observe and notice that awakens you with this imagery, right? For me, there's a sense of connection with nature, of course, right? There's an interconnectedness. There's a symmetry to it that seems so organized, and yet at the same time can also have this chaos to it. I'm going to move on to the next picture. So holding into your space over there, just think about that vast expansion and then that number sequence, biological number sequence, the Fibonacci sequence. And you can see this fractal. So as we move into the Aquarius archetype, or should I say, as we move into Pluto in Aquarius, you know, those two patterns that I showed you earlier, the Fibonacci shell, and then of course the plant itself that has that geometry in it. Well, over here now, we're able to connect to a different way of mapping the cycles. So astrology, as an example, is the ability for us to track cycles and observe the behaviorisms that exist. And so this image over here is a digitalized format of our capacity to understand the mathematical equation that is our relationship to the higher consciousness and our biological form, right? Each and every single one of us has a very unique rhythm. And the Aquarius archetype is pushing us to say, hey, well, what is your unique rhythm as opposed to that person? So in the past, everybody just woke up at a certain time. They followed a clock that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and everybody followed that. But there was a suppression of a natural instinct that is part of our way of being. The Aquarius archetype breaks things open to the point where everybody is seeking to understand their own natural rhythm. And this is a beautiful potential, a possibility. And the question that you want to propose to yourself is, we follow this man-made rhythm, right, for us to participate in a kind of very ordered, production-orientated society. But when Neptune and Uranus went through Aquarius, it accelerated a deep biological change within us. And it gave us the opportunity to be able to live in ways where our times could be honored. We could honor our own biological clock, is what I'm really trying to say here. So part of this Pluto in Aquarius is the ability to live in a world in which this unique biorhythm can be lived through, that can be understood and experienced. Okay. So wholeness and resonance is my completion of this Aquarius energy, because as you can see here, there's a toroidal field, there's a magnetism, there is polarity, and the Aquarius archetype in its acceleration can create fracturing, can create things to be discombobulated, but ultimately the acceleration is meant to bring diverse states of consciousness into reality, new forms, new ideas, new perspectives, new points of views, so that when that process comes back into form, as in it returns back to its natural state, into wholeness, there is a different state of resonance that takes place, that the epicenter, the core of the structure has been altered. And that core then creates a different fractal, a different way of life, a different stream of expression. And the way that we know this is that if we look back at history, we can see different civilizations had different patterns of rising, right? The Egyptians, for instance, had a very unique interest and curiosity in death. And they brought us something around an aspect of consciousness. Here in the Western world, we've become very kind of organized and ordered, and we've lived in ways where everything's become meticulous, and we've got roads that are, you know, ordered with maps and lines and signboards, and we've achieved something, right? But Pluto in Aquarius is going to say it's time for us to actually move into a completely new direction. So part of this Pluto transit Aquarius, part of the Aquarius energy will actually force a pressure in each of us to respond to something new that will bring you into a state of wholeness through a process of fracturing and deconditioning. Many people have gone through that psychic kind of trauma that has brought you into a different state of awareness that has actually been incredibly freeing. You'll know who you are, because originally it would have just felt like everything was falling apart for you. But now there is a deeper state of wholeness that you have with yourself, and there's a resonance within you that speaks to a direction, to a north, right? And you feel more whole. And the Aquarius energy is facilitating that for all of us at this point in time. And when Pluto enters Aquarius, it's just going to accelerate that process. So you will see, as Pluto enters Aquarius, two versions of reality split, where those that will struggle to integrate this accelerated deconditioning process, and those that will have done a tremendous amount of work in Pluto and Capricorn to be able to know how to navigate this acceleration that's going to come our way. Okay. So the natural next step from this process in which acceleration and decondition takes place, becoming more in alignment with a true sense of north, is the body connection. This one's interesting to me because if you follow the kind of transition of the ages and the conversation around the 2000 years of Pisces energy, what was very apparent to me was that a lot of people that have gone through a deep change in the last couple of years, the last sort of 10 years, for instance, just say 10 years, right? The last 10 years, a lot of dark nights of the soul, a lot of experiences that have forced people into a necessary need for rejuvenation, have actually let go of a lot of addictions that have kept them disconnected from their body for whatever reason that may be, right? So Pluto in Aquarius energy is going to shift the collective into a value that is very much about not wanting to disconnect from the body, not wanting to be disassociated, right? Now, a tremendous amount of work that has been done for those that have been preparing for an Aquarius energy is working on the effects that trauma has brought on. So being human and coming into this world, you're born into an experience, and being born is a traumatic experience because at one point you're in this nice womb experiencing something, and then all of a sudden you're in this environment, the whole entire world has changed, and now you need to adapt to an environment that is very different from the place that you were in a couple of hours before. So this perspective shift, this onset of something completely different, is a traumatic experience. Being human and growing up through your childhood can be traumatic, right? At some point in this world, in this life that you'll have, you will go through a very intense experience that will feel like something just swooped you up out of nowhere, that just takes you up, your nervous system gets consumed, you get hijacked, and you're disembodied. But we've never had the technology, the healing modalities, and the experiences and the psychological understanding to return back to the body after a rapture. So Pluto through Aquarius will signify a collective recognition towards healing these parts of ourselves that have needed to stay separate from our core because of a rapture. And you'll see the onset of a collective need, or it will become something where in the last 100 years, people used to smoke cigarettes and that's what you did. Well, moving forward, a lot of people will have the same thing. It was like, oh, you don't do trauma work, or you don't do emotional healing or mental health, whatever that may be, right? This will be something that will become more and more present within the collective because the underlying mechanism is to return to the body, right? To not be disconnected, to come into oneself, to come into one's earthly space. It doesn't mean that everybody will do it. It just means that mechanism will be there as a pressure to cope with it. So one of the pioneers who is attuned to the Aquarius energy, amongst many, many others that are out there, said something along the lines of this, right? The essence of trauma is disconnection. Okay, so the real question is, how did we get separated and how do we connect? So this is a big piece that will be part of the movement of connecting back with the body, coming back into the somatic senses, coming back into the part of you, the polarity point of Aquarius, right? The heart space. So disconnection through events that were highly intense, and then we are separated from it, right? There's a part of us that is separated, that is stuck in, frozen in time, right? Aquarius, multi-dimensions, stuck in time. And the question with Pluto and Aquarius is the capacity to reintegrate those pieces. A lot of those structures have already started to be laid down within the collective as Pluto's moving through Aquarius, right? Things like emotional regulation, things like working through the events that happened through your childhood. This is going back in time, working through that stuff so that the future self that you have, right, is not affected by the present condition that is affected by the past condition. Do you see how our capacity to understand these timelines is becoming more and more like broader in our consciousness? That's why things like astrology, for instance, can be profound healing tools, because it is literally a mechanism of being able to understand time in its state, right? Okay. So somatic experiences are becoming more popular. People are becoming more connected with the arts of yoga and other forms of healing the body, right? A lot of people are doing challenges where they're fasting as a way to understand how their biorhythm works. A lot of people are connected to fitness and doing something that allows them to feel alive. Now, ultimately, what I'm really trying to say here is that Aquarius is the archetype through its disconnection that will stop the blood flow in the body. And right now, there is a pressure where people are waking up to rejuvenating themselves, and in this rejuvenation process, awakening the ethereal body, awakening the somatic body, awakening the blood flow within themselves. And that's why you see a tremendous amount of aliveness, right? Especially like social media, people were doing, like, their bodies are moving again, right? There's a non-desire to just want to sit in front of a computer screen like this, and that's how I'm just going to be for 8 hours, right? People are like, no, you can't do that. That's not good. Or if I'm going to spend 3 hours sitting at a computer, for instance, I need to have it ergodynamic. I need to be able to move. I need to be drinking water, hydration, looking at sunlight as an example. So there is a strong awakening within the collective around somatic work. Okay, so this slide over here wants to acknowledge the truth of something, and that is that Aquarius is sky, right? It's the, like I said, it's the disconnect. It's the what's okay, fine, atmosphere. There's another word for it. I can't come to my mind right now. But anyway, I'm just going to use the word skybound. Okay, so we're disconnected from our Earth, and in true Aquarius fashion, if you're doing your Aquarius work, you're actually not staying in that dislocated space. You're actually coming into the body. You're coming into the body. And the reason why you're coming into the body is to experience this. Okay? You're coming in to experience this. This is the spiritual connection. This is the unfolding of your life. We have a series of experiences that is our human condition, right? The biology of the body will move like a clock, like this, and it will open up and you will experience the totality of your consciousness for a period of time, okay? And the ability to connect what your body represents as the time, the biological time, to the experience that is on the sky, that synthesis over there is the Aquarius awakening experience, right? People will be able to access their unconscious in a more deeper way. That's why so much psychotherapy work is becoming popular, because we're acknowledging that there is something beyond just our physical senses that impacts our way of living. So when we come into this piece here, we're coming from that disconnected, passive observing space, and that's a subject I'm going to actually talk about in terms of paradox soon. But we're coming from that disconnected space into the body, right? Into this groundedness over here. And part of that process, part of that Aquarius work is, again, you become alive. It's a very big piece as to why that's the case, and I'll get deeper into this. So Pluto through Aquarius will give us the capacity to live in ways in which we're more earthbound. And yet the paradox of it is that there is no incentive naturally to go into that earth space with Aquarius. So you will see, like this arrow over here, where there was an attempt to remain disconnected, to remain in the atmosphere, to remain, not in the body, as it were. And so technology, in the onset of technology, will be something where you can just spend 12 hours completely disconnected from your body. Or you can live in a way where you're still using your body as the mechanism for experiencing the sensations of this place, and technology can be used as a way to integrate within ourselves. And again, where we're going, there are no roads, right? We don't know how we're going to use this going forward, right? We're literally just kind of emerging into this energy. So what that will look like and how it will work, I have no idea. But what will be very clear, especially as we Pluto into Aquarius, is that the onset of technology will give us the ability to remain completely disconnected from the self, disconnected from the body. And so this is a message to find that balance between the two, okay? So remaining skybound is a natural state. The idea is to really come back into the somatic sense and to be able to experience that binary between the biological clock and the great cosmos there. Okay. So throughout this Pluto transit into Aquarius, there will be a pressure, and that pressure will be felt in many different ways. And one of the ways that's going to be felt is because there is a multidimensional reality existing, the capacity to plan will become less and less easy. In other words, life will be led more from a very intuitive internal navigation space, like living in flow, being able to live like that. Because Aquarius is breaking things down and saying that's not how things work, or patterns of irregularity. So we may be putting our faith or our trust in certain things like, hey, in 2 years' time, I'm planning to do that. Okay, cool, go do that. But there is absolutely no guarantee that that will be there. And so we project ourselves into a future reality and then work towards a pretend future reality that may or may not be there. So this process of coming to the body connects to a state of organization that is beyond the mind's capacity to understand multidimensional world. And I've used that, those are very kind of big words at the moment, but what I mean by that emotionally for us is that this image here is, well, which direction do I go? How do I navigate this place? And that will become something that will become very clear, right? The knowing of your inner truth, the knowing of your capacity to be in alignment with what resonates is what will guide. But part of that process, part of that deconditioned experience is also having multiple experiences or multiple accelerated states of reality present and going, well, I don't know which one to choose. How do I navigate my life? Where do I belong? So displacement, right? Displacement, being displaced is a very big part of Aquarius, and Pluto entering Aquarius will reveal a tremendous amount of people in displaced experiences because that sense of integration or navigation is not there. And again, Aquarius correlates to, unfortunately, elite experiences, elite situations, elite societies. And so a lot of people have access to what I've shared right now and do that, and a lot of people will not. And it will become a conflict within the collective between those that have more empathetic sides to them, that will say something along the lines of, we need to, rescue humanity and all come together. And there will be other people that will say, I'm sorry, but, I did all this hard work and I did this inner work. I invested in the things that were here to make me stronger or to, heal whatever. And I can't carry the weight of those that have not. That's going to be a real dilemma that will exist more and more as Pluto enters Aquarius. So direction will become scattered and more difficult to own unless you're actually attuned or consciously making decisions to learn how to get in touch with your own Cadic rhythm. Okay. So this word align is a big piece of it. So in the past, when we've decided to follow something that's meaningful in our lives, a lot of the cultural myth or perception has been that you've needed to put your time in, work hard, dedication, etc. And while all of those things were great for a structure of reality that rendered certain rewards, Pluto entering Aquarius will bring the onset of a generation, right? The Zoomers and the generation just before that, where a lot of people are like, nah, I have zero interest in spending my time doing things that are hard work and laborious. I'll just get that AI to do it, right? I'll just get that to do it over there. So part of this Pluto and Aquarius energy will activate, and you've got to follow the thread here. There's a thread here that I'm talking about, right? Coming into the body, coming into wholeness, coming into resonance, facilitates this alignment process. So as society's ideals and values shift and change, and that will accelerate with Pluto and Aquarius, so whatever we're dealing with right now, you can pretty much put that on fast forward, because when Pluto enters Aquarius, it's going to speed that up, right? There's going to be a strong drive towards accelerating new behaviorisms, cultural myths, cultural taboos that are very much not what the past has been about. And part of that means understanding how to use your time, right? Owning your time, protecting your time, and such. And the only way to do that is to come into alignment, right? This word has probably no weight, but at some point you will experience this feeling of, wow, I don't feel like I'm in alignment with something. I feel like I'm stuck. I feel like I'm not resonating with this. I can't belong to something. I feel displaced. I feel scattered. I feel like I'm wasting energy. I feel like I'm burning out. These are key words that you will notice as Pluto enters Aquarius become more and more like, these words that just are part of the collective. Yeah, because acceleration will do that. So if you notice like a surfer, for instance, that gets on a surfboard, the wave carries this kinetic energy. When that surfer is in the zone and he's going down that massive wave, that wave carries it. He's in alignment, right, with flow. This is not just a random series of words that sound cool. We will live the experience of this. And a big part of that is becoming in alignment with the natural self, the unfolding pattern that is unique about you. So from scattered, misdirected, loss of purpose, where do I belong, who am I, to a sense of feeling as if there is an actual direction that you're being guided through by something beyond yourself. It will become more popular within the collective, where people will say, I'm following a deeper path. If this is where I'm meant to be, I trust that. It will become almost like a new religion, where instead of the religion being that, there's an almighty being that somewhere is kind of guiding us and passing us down lessons, the transition is into this kind of core sense of direction that is coming from the internal space. And if you've ever met an Aquarius soul that has a spiritual tone to them, you'll notice that they don't talk like, oh, there's this deeper meaning that's coming from up high. It's like, no, this seems to be where our spiritual journey is right now. And it may stay like this or it may not. And the navigation in life is a lot more like they're walking on a specific path and they're very connected to that path. And it's unique to them. It's not the same for everybody else. So each and every one of us has this capacity through the things that I've shared with you earlier to come into some sense of alignment, and it will feel like less effort. It will feel like belonging. It will feel like resonance. It will feel like the place that uplifts you as opposed to a place that feels dislocated. Okay. So another theme that I want to address here is AI and technology. And of course, the buzzword at the moment is this word, these two letters, AI, artificial intelligence, right? Now, my position on this over here is as follows. My 2 cents, right? I think that we know very little about what we're playing with. I think that there is tremendous potential that exists here. And there's a kind of curiosity that I have about it. And so part of this next series of slides that I want to put across is just kind of some contemplation, some perspective, something to think about as we engage in this new era of human interaction. Okay. So I'm sure many of you on the internet right now, on the world, have come across this icon, and it may have drawn your attention. You might have given it none attention. Doesn't matter. The idea is that this little icon has definitely presented us as human beings with some really profound questions about the nature of certainty towards our future. It has presented us with some very profound and deep philosophical questions, which I will get into now. And it is also brought to the attention how rapidly something that had meaning can completely become outdated. This is Aquarius. So ChatGPT, right, this large language model, has now given human beings the ability to access information at rapid rates, and is this pretty profound kind of tool that has taken Google search in some way and given it a way of interacting with information that's very different to the way that we've done this before. And if you can think about how Google came into our consciousness around the 2000s, and that Uranus and Neptune were moving through Aquarius at the time, you can just think about what happens when another outer planet like Pluto, which is even further away from Neptune and Uranus in their collective consciousness, comes into Aquarius and says, hello, hi, you remember that acceleration process that we had happen in 2000s when Facebook and YouTube and social media and emailing and all of that stuff came online? Well, now the collective is going to move to that piece. And so just very briefly, if any of you have come across this material, and like in Sweden, for instance, some universities have said, well, it's here, it's something that we need to embrace. And then there's another group of universities where they've said the first person has been caught using ChatGPT. And what I find so interesting and fascinating about this, including another section I want to talk about, which is how rapid things can change with the onset of this, is a lot of people within the coding department, the software development department, have gone, oh my God, my job can be redundant. That's what Aquarius is. The acceleration brings something in that makes what was present reality 3 days ago completely feel outdated. When Pluto enters Aquarius, expect more of these things to take place. Expect more of things to become outdated and redundant at such a rapid rate that it leaves you going, well, where do I belong? That's a real thing. Okay, so you've got this program here, which I find really fascinating. And I want to bring in the mythology of Prometheus. Yeah, okay. And so the power of fire. So fire has been an important part of human civilization. And I just want to stop there, for instance, instead of going further. Steve Jobs had an interview in 1977 or 1978, and he talked about how different tools were catalysts for human beings to solve problems. And I thought that was so interesting, because not only does this person have Pluto in the 11th house, as in Pluto in Aquarius, and he brought through something that revolutionized the way that we as human beings interact with stuff in 2007, right, with the iPhone, or at least his thinking, that fire, if you go back in our time, far back, right? Every tool that we've come up with, right, whether it be sticks and stones and whatever, human beings, when tools have been given to them, rapidly enhances their capacity to unlock new dimensions of reality. And so when fire came into our lives, we were able to, go into and change our hunting patterns. And now we could all of a sudden have fire that would keep us warm, and life expectancy would increase a little bit. And so then we would go hunt animals, for instance, and then we would cook that, and that changed our palates. And then we would start to do X, Y, Z. And eventually fire became an integrative process that is an element of transformation, right? It is an element of transformation. It changes something fundamentally within us. And each time something new comes into our consciousness, the element of fire is at the cornerstone of it, right? It's embedded in the technology of the fabric of its reality. So artificial intelligence, if you break it down and strip it away and you remove all the noise of every person's opinion of it, at the core of it, it's a tool that is speaking to a very deep primal piece within us. And Aquarius is this little spark that says, make it happen faster, right? It creates a rapid expansion of it. It just happens like that, right? The internet is at the core an expansion tool. I just want you to think about 2019. And while everybody, Zoom was there, Google Meets was there, webcams were there, we all just kind of went on our daily bay. We didn't need these things. And then all of a sudden 2020 and 2021 comes along. And for the most part of 2020, from around like March up until maybe even June, July, you couldn't actually buy a webcam. Where I was in Sweden, webcams were sold out. Like just for a moment, just think about the fact that in a short period of time, what we took for granted became an obsolete because of the way that our lives changed, right? And all of a sudden, technology became a high asset, right? We needed a computer. We started working from home, as it were. And people now were in situations that they're in habitats that they never experienced, that or thought of, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that rapid change is an Aquarius feature. And when you think about technology and artificial intelligence, this is a step in our process of human nature that is speaking to a deep evolutionary primal experience within us that is going to catalyze and accelerate us into a reality that we don't even know. Like the roads that we're heading for, we don't even know what it looks like. It's uncertain in many ways. And it's profoundly beautiful because we are literally at the leading edge of something profound and phenomenal in terms of human evolution. But at the same time, many of you know exactly what happens when fire gets out of hand. So there's this interesting thing of fire can also be destructive force and capable of burning and destroying what it touches, right? Surveillance, as an example, has become something that a lot of people are uncomfortable with, right? You can think about what your phone is. It's a data collection a tool. It gathers your internet, and your data is everywhere. And unless you have a very tuned in understanding of how those mechanics works, you are pretty much vulnerable to people who have got some very, very terrible intentions. So the question as part of this process here with this Aquarius energy is, how does technology get used? These will be deep philosophical questions that we proposed. Also, how do you use it in your life? As an example, right? What is the function that it uses? Is it an unconscious behaviorism that the fire is just there that keeps you, or does it enhance you? Do you use it to enhance yourself? Do you use it to grow and to expand yourself? That's another deep question that comes along with this process. And artificial intelligence is another example of it, because what it will meet within us, right? If I don't know if how many of you have interacted with any people that have got these like robot vacuum cleaners. I can think about the dishwasher, for instance, and the tumble dryer and the washing machine. What did that do for the working class of people, or the woman that stayed at home during the 60s and 50s and 70s, where those tools were in place? It gave time. Technology gave time for us to do something that we wanted to do. So the onset of artificial intelligence as well as technology is actually providing a solution to this need for freedom, while at the same time, it is also unchecked, as it were, right? It's unchecked. And this is kind of a place that we're navigating right now. And it's going to be interesting to watch because I don't even know if this is something that we can control. It's just fascinating to observe, right? So the power of Prometheus in this context, right? He steals fire from the Olympian gods and it gives it to humanity as a way to enhance our capacity. And so right at the bottom here, the mythology of Prometheus reminds us that our actions have lasting impact, right? And that we can have the power to shape our own destiny. I mean, for those of you that are into astrology, you'll know that the polarity to Aquarius is shaping our destiny. Okay. So part of this process, and I'm sort of like 70% through this conversation, part of this process is coming into Zeus, right? The old god. And this is a really fascinating kind of dilemma that you'll get to observe. And I encourage you to see this within yourself. So the old god, or Zeus, what Zeus does is he gets angry with Prometheus. He's like, why did you give this to humanity? They don't deserve it. This is a type of technology that or power that they do not understand or comprehend. It's going to hurt them more. They don't deserve it. And you should be punished for this, right? So if I were to translate this in a very simple way, observe over the next sort of week or months, whatever, the different types of conversations that will be within you and within how people are having it, right? Who's Prometheus that says, hey, this is good, this is fantastic, we need fire, we need more acceleration. And those that say, oh, I'm skeptical of it, I don't know how this is working, right? That's the old god. And when I say the old god, I mean more in the sense that what is the established structure? Like ChatGPT comes in and goes, hey, Google, by the way, we've just kind of like destroyed your whole entire structure by giving human beings this ability to interact with a prompt mechanism that gives them fast, rapid information, and it's so much more clear and direct, right? And Google goes, our whole entire model has changed. What are we going to do? So Google come out and say, ChatGPT is bad. As an example, like artificial intelligence that helps. Like another example is a lot of artists, for instance, are also in the same position where art and creating art is something unique and it's an expression to them. Now you can go on the internet and literally type in Tome, and you can go into Tome and you can type in, hey, create me an image of blah, 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 do it like this and put it in a surreal thing. And within a period of like 10 minutes, for instance, it can render this picture that's just phenomenal. Fair enough, it's digitalized, but there is a conflict going on between the world of artists that have created from human capacity and something that is just artificially generated it. Now, what is real and what is not? So that's another example, right? Or how do universities know if their students have written an essay that's come from their own intuition, their own education, and if they've just gone into ChatGPT and just typed in something, done it for them, right? How can they tell? Now, there are many things that have occurred right now that can, detect plagiarism and so on and so forth. But this is what I'm trying to bring across here, is that a big part of this Promethean energy, this Aquarius energy, will bring dynamics of acceleration that will make things redundant. And then I want you to watch the response of what has been made redundant by going, that's bad, aka Zeus, that's bad, you should contain that, don't let that exist, right? And those that will be more Aquarius or more freedom orientated and say, nope, you can't have that anymore. They're down with the established structure. And this conflict will take place. You can watch that binary occur within yourself at a mythological level, because that's how our psyche and these archetypes are working. And you'll also see it in the collective. You'll see how there will be a new formation of laws, right? Like I said, a lot of the generation, the Zoomers, for instance, have spent a great deal of time with technology. They grew up with it, right? So when COVID came along and they were told to just stay in one place for a period of time, they were like, oh, thank God. Whereas a lot of older people were like, trapped in my house? Are you crazy? So the younger generations, a part of them don't actually mind this process. And that's a whole entire different conversation to have around sky and the sky bound and the earth bound, right? I'm kind of disconnected from that. But you will see that going forward with Pluto and Aquarius, new laws will form around how we interact with things. What can technology be used for? I mean, in the EU, for instance, I think 4 years ago or 3 years ago, you go onto websites and you have to first click cookies, right? Does this person, we track you, and do you allow this or not? In 2014, 2013, there was no such thing. You just went to the internet. But now, because of the onset of how websites work and data collection, etc., they've had to put in certain things to, okay, make sure that this was real or not. So there are going to be new laws that are going to form that will come from outdated structures. Structures will become irrelevant and outdated, and then new laws will form because it's like, no, you can't do that. And who's going to make these laws? And that's the question. It's like, who's going to form these things? And that, again, you will see the Zeus versus Prometheus, right? How do old constitutions interact with new energy, right? Just think of the Facebook trials when Facebook was having to go in front of a whole entire audience of people, and they would use words like algorithms and this, very specialized Aquarius type of age words, right? Computer words. And the audience, they needed translators. Like, what do you mean when you say algorithm? There's a perfect example of this binary, and you'll see it with Pluto and Aquarius. Acceleration will take place, and then you'll see us like going, whoa, how do we interact with this? Okay. Another big conversation that will happen on the collective right now, and it's a very sensitive subject at the moment because we are trying to figure out what it is. But moving forward, Aquarius does actually correlate to purification. Now, a lot of people think of Virgo is that, and it is true. Virgo is about purification, but Aquarius is the merging out of Pisces, the merging out of the delusionment, right? The merging out of the addiction, as it were. And so part of that in this world that we'll merge within is, what is clean energy? Right? How do you live in alignment where you're recognizing how much waste you express? And that will become a very serious and real thing when Pluto enters Aquarius. People will align with, things that, or energy and life and experiences, rules, regulations that will force clean type of energy, as it were. It's going to be a massive industry that will emerge, and it will be similar to the car industry, right? It will become predominant, it will become a big deal, and you will see it everywhere. The question is, what does clean energy actually look like? And so again, here I introduced the roads. What roads, right? Where we're going, we don't even have roads. It's like, yeah, well, what does that even look like? It's at the tip of our conversation as a collective. But when Pluto enters Aquarius, it's going to become a very pressing conversation that will eventually take shape. And by the end of 2044, we will live in a world that will look back at this time right now and go, oh my God, we're primitive. Okay. What will purpose look like? You see what I mean? Like in the past, people had a schedule, right? They woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning. They went to work, they clocked in using the little chicker over there. They worked in a conveyor belt industrial age world, which emerged with Pluto and Aquarius the last time around in 1770s, right? Industrial revolution took place. We got electricity, etc. But that was a time where that was the context of the reality. Now we're living in a time where, like I said, I can control this light over here with the phone app, right? Whereas before you'd need to go to the light switch. So this is a very interesting time where we're becoming untethered from our connections. Have you noticed how many people walk around with the Bluetooth head thingy-mabobs in here? And what is it that's actually connecting you to your phone? Where's the thing? Where's the actual wiring? They've tapped into a frequency, Aquarius, that allows the connection between two objects that are not tethered together, at least from the physical senses, right? That's sky energy. So we're becoming untethered from these dependencies, from these connections. And yet at the same, like we're becoming skybound, right? But at the same time, it also puts us in positions where, like I said, who are you if your job becomes redundant? It can be done by artificial intelligence or technology, which is something that will become more and more accepted by us because inherently within us, there's a primal instinct to respond to acceleration and tools that free up our time to do the thing that you love. And again, the question that comes back to it, well, what is it? Who are you? How do you know what you love? What do you resonate with? What's the thing that you like? So what will your purpose look like going forward when the world is changing so rapidly, right? 10 years ago, if you came to a person, you say, hey, I'm actually a professional astrologer and I do all my readings online, etc., they'd be like, well, wow, I don't understand. Or tell somebody in 1930 that you're developing this super cool smartphone that's going to allow you to be able to turn on a light using an app, or that you're going to be, I don't know, sending emails or reading Facebook. They'll be like, what's the point? What's the purpose? Why would you need that? Because the current context of reality doesn't see the value in that moment. Well, Pluto in Aquarius will accelerate things to the point where right now we will not see the value in something. As things emerge within us, we won't be able to make that correlation until it's there and it's in front of us and we're like, oh, right? That's the piece. So how do we actually connect with this process? How do we interact with this acceleration? How do we internalize technology? How do we deal with all this rapid change that's taking place? And it's got to do with the evolving brain, right? Aquarius correlates directly to dendrites, correlates correctly to the brain synapses, the neurotransmitters that take place. And there was a tremendous amount of understanding about neuroscience a long time ago. But compared to what we understand today about neuroscience, it is archaic 15, 20, 30 years ago. It is archaic. What we can do now with understanding the brain and how it works, and it's archaic. And it is archaic at the moment compared to what it will be like in the next 25 years when Pluto provides that acceleration of Aquarius energy into our consciousness. I just want to make a quick disclaimer over here. There is no part of me that feels that there is an idealistic sense of Pluto entering Aquarius. I've shared a lot of things with you today that has given the impression that this is an ideal, magical, wonderful thing for humanity. I don't believe that. I think that it's going to be both. I think it's going to be incredibly difficult because it's going to present a world of reality for people that is going to be so vastly different that the terrain will make the experience of reality feel like it's a foreign place, like it is alien, right? And people will feel extraterrestrial in that sense, like I'm not from this place. It doesn't make sense. And there will people that will go, I've never felt so connected to my center core being than I have right now. Those binaries will take place. So coming back to this piece over here in terms of Aquarius and the evolving brain, right? We've learned a tremendous amount of how the relationship the brain has to frequencies. I mean, what I'm really trying to put across here is that our relationship to the physical body and the senses and learning about our body is rapidly accelerating. And at some point, like, I don't know if you have been following things like nootropics, which are certain types of brain chemical things like mushrooms, for instance, lion's mane, ashwagandha. They've been around for a long period of time, but it's becoming more adopted, into the collective because we're enhancing our capacity to go into deeper states of thinking. We're becoming more focused on understanding our brain's capacity. We're enhancing our ability to tap into those multidimensional realities. And 20 years ago, if I put, like, you're as a kid, right? I put 3 screens in front of you like that, and I said, follow all of them. You'd be like, I'm going to get really overwhelmed just following the one CTR screen. Today, if you look at a lot of kids, for instance, that spend a great deal of time in front of computers, it's a standard to have 2 screens in front of you, right? Screens disconnect, right, into this projected world. Aquarius will be that projected world. I belong to something disconnected from my body, and yet the experience gives me the sensation that I'm actually going through it, right? Virtual reality. And virtual reality is friggin' cool. It's amazing. And on another side, it's also something that completely, you're not even experiencing the reality there, but your brain interprets it that way. That's how far we've come to be able to trick the brain to think that it's climbing a mountain, when in actual fact, where you are is just in this boring space that is your living room, for instance, right? Compared to this vast mountain that you're climbing, right? That merging of those two realities, this Pluto and Aquarius, and our brain's ability to be able to interact with that is phenomenal. And yet at the same time, it's completely primitive. Like the limbic system was not evolved for Aquarius AI technological advanced things. That's why every single one of us that spends 2 hours on our social media don't even realize that your limbic system is being completely hijacked by sensations and experiences that release dopamine at rapid rates. And so you're sitting there and you're like moving through this, and after a certain period of time, you're like, wow, I feel completely awful. That's because the way that tech stimulates the brain to interact is doing it in a way where your brain has never needed that process before, right? And this is kind of these natural steps that are taking place. We're in an evolutionary process here. You can't just take, I don't know, millions of years of evolution and all of a sudden just put it with something that has just been here for what, less than 30 years? Of course, there's going to be things that we're going to experience about ourselves. And that's why a lot of social media, for instance, can be so addictive in many ways, because it speaks to parts of our brains that would usually not actually be set up. How many of you find it really uncomfortable to be in a presentation like this and see yourself all the time? Your brain's not designed to have a constant image of yourself reflected back to you, looking who you are all the time, right? It's not designed like that. So it makes us have this really weird, confrontational self-criticism perspective to it. These are the types of things that I'm talking about here. So the brain is evolving in many ways, but there's also some really kind of funny things that happen along the road in the way that we adapt to this process. But either way, we're learning some really, really profound things about ourselves, good and bad. Okay, so neuroplasticity. This is a phenomena that has been around for a long period of time, but is now becoming part of the collective, right? The brain continually recognizes itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. The phenomenon is called neuroplasticity. And this is a really fascinating field of research that is allowing us to be able to heal from traumatic experiences, as well as also train the brain to be able to create these new neural connections and form new patterns of behavior and habits. And this is very Aquarius in itself. A lot of people have had the realization that they can form new habits, right? This is a massive breakthrough. And so the capacity to switch and use the brain to be able to change this tells us that our capacity for dealing with the uncertainty of the future is also possible, that we can adapt, right? And there is an adaptation process, there's an adaptation that naturally takes place. So moving forward, our brain's capacity to be able to understand the moment and understand the way that the fractal of our experiences in life are becoming shorter. Like, how many of you actually have a memory that is, that was as good as it was, say, a long time ago, right? The short-term memory has changed quite a lot. It's a lot more difficult to have that far-term memory. I don't know if you've experienced it, but that's something that I've sort of seen or observed, is that the capacity to have the awareness of the moment, where am I presently here, to meet each changing dynamic and to be more in flow, as opposed to long-term planning, that it doesn't have the same value anymore, right? Because things can change so rapidly. The brain's capacity to actually be more receptive now, as opposed to something that's more linear in that step-by-step process. It doesn't mean that we don't need that. It's just that it will become less and less through this emergent energy, this emergent patterning. The way that we will live will become less reliant on far-term planning and more on where I am in the moment and what I'm experiencing right now, and integrating those experiences. And so what it does is it broadens our awareness, right? This is the whole purpose here. There's an expansion of our capacity to have wider awareness. It picks up on the frequencies that are the things that we can see. So deeper spiritual connection, broader understanding of your unconscious, the broader understanding of your subconscious patterns. the ability to change the way that your subconscious beliefs work so that you can alter your reality moving forward. That gives you deeper sense of purpose or meaning or whatever that is, right? Break through habits within yourself, change fear patterns. And more than that, give us the ability to explore deeper realms of reality, like I talked about right in the beginning. So my summary for this conversation today really is that the road ahead seems to be paved. It seems to be very clear, right? We've got this emergence of technology. It seems to be clear that there's a tremendous amount of emphasis around body and mind and trauma work and connecting to the body, that things are changing rapidly for us as in terms of the world. And, who knows where we could be. But at the end of the day, these themes are patterns that we will face in terms of our forward evolution. And it's not so much about trying to avoid them, but an ability to how to navigate each of these themes within ourselves. So I'm really excited about it, but at the same time also very open and curious. Like, what does it really look like for us? Fantastic. Thank you very much for sitting with me on this long conversation today. I hope that it nourished and found value at different points. And thanks very much for your attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Simon. Really, really fun.
Yes, I know that that's quite a lot that just came out. So
Yes, it was. Yeah. And Monica says amazing. It is a lot. And, it will have 20 some years to deal with it all too. Yeah.
indeed,
Cool.
indeed.
So we look forward to your next talk always. And
Absolutely.
thank you again.
Thank you,
Take care.
Simon.
Bye.